Welcome back, Cracked fans, to another edition of the Cracked Interviews podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. As you listeners know, we have been all in on getting you ready for the 2020 college tennis men's dual match season. We have had interviews these past 5 weeks with our 5 different coaches from the teams who ended the 2019 season ranked in the 10 through 6 positions. Joining me to preview those teams on the mini break and joining me on the Cracked Interviews podcast to interview the coaches of the teams we've discussed thus far. And joining me again tonight, you know him as the forefather of the collegetennisranks.com formula, predictions that never fall from the listed UTR, and of course one of the many dames who root for the Liberty Flames. Chris Halioris, welcome back to the Cracked Interviews podcast. It's great to have you.
Yeah, likewise, Alex. Always good to be here.
Yeah, I feel like at some point listeners may want to hear about what you, Chris, have planned in terms of joining us, Cracked Racquets, for the 2020 season. We listeners who can't tell by now, Chris officially joining our Cracked Racquets team. We're thrilled about that. Actually, Westhoff, give me a brief applause. I feel like we never gave a podcast applause. It doesn't even have to be a brief. Give me a rousing applause. Chris, welcome to our Cracked Racquets team.
That sounded like a golf clap, but okay.
Yeah, it's actually just you can't hear that, but 3 floors up, my mom is clapping. She's like, "Way to go, Chris!" No, but we are so thrilled to have you formally part of our Cracked Racquets team. What that really means, we don't know, but I know we have a ton of fun stuff planned for you college tennis fans come the 2020 season. And part of the way to get that underway, these interviews we've been doing with coaches, Chris, I know last week, it's going to be awfully tough to top that interview we did with Coach Boland, as fun as it was. But this week's guest, UVA head coach Andres Pedroso, much like he's following up Coach Boland well at UVA, he did one hell of a job on tonight's podcast. Yeah,
absolutely. And it never ceases to amaze me. You do each one of these and you keep thinking, wow, that was good. I don't know how it gets any better. And then the next one gets better. And, it's a blast having these guys on and talking to them.
I don't know if you remember this, but I think our first pod was like 2 years ago, and I did it literally in my car because back then we were such such an unofficial operation. I was like calling in, Westhoff was calling things in, and like we were just on a phone call in our car. And I was like, and at that time I was like, wow, I don't know if I'm ever going to do a better college preview than the one I just did with Chris. And like, yeah, it's like, well, we certainly have gotten better since then. So yeah, these coaching interviews, I mean, it just speaks to, you wonder why college tennis has gotten better and better in the 2010s. It's because the quality of these head coaches of these major programs continues to rise to the occasion.
Oh, no doubt. And as our listeners will find out, and you listen to Coach Pedroso tonight, I mean, you can tell the tennis, he loves the game of tennis.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. He loves it. He's well aware of what it takes to help a player succeed or not. We talk about his experience. He's a 2-time All-American, a former professional player, top 300 in singles and doubles, assistant coach at UVA from 2010 to 2014 as well. So the pedigree for him, the resume was always there, as you'll hear in my opening poem. But to get the chance, as you mentioned, to talk to these coaches, you just get it. You're like, oh, this is why a Brandon Nakashima would put off a year of tennis to go play a year of college tennis. This is why a Blumberg stays in college, or Brandon Holt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's because the quality of the coaching they're receiving really does help prepare them for the pro world.
Yeah, there's no doubt. But I will say the one thing Coach Pedroso certainly didn't get from Coach Boland is he certainly didn't learn how to poke at you. I mean, in trying to coax folks, I'm sorry, I just couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, this joke is going to end up in an NCAA violation, but I'm a booster. You never cross the boosters, right? I don't know a bigger UVA booster than myself. That's a lie, NCAA. I haven't given a single cent to any player under the table or any of that nonsense. I am just a big fan who happens to have a microphone by his face. And because I have that microphone, as Chris mentioned, we did have the chance to talk to Coach Pedroso, not only about his pedigree, his decision to return to college tennis, what his UVA team and the team he hopes to build, the program he hopes to keep building on, will look like moving forward. But we also talked about their prospects for the 2020 season, what happens when you lose players like a Henrik Wiersholm and Ashwin Lizon. Are they losing Brandon Nakashima? Coach Pedroso is coy about it a little bit. Coy is the wrong word. He's actually very he speaks very candidly about the situation, understanding what's best for Brandon, but he doesn't want to rob Brandon of his decision, so he didn't want to rush to say Brandon is or isn't coming back before Brandon has made that statement himself. So no break breaking news along the Brooksby lines, but again, a really fun, in-depth conversation with Coach Pedroso. I know all of you fans will enjoy it, so without further ado, here's Chris and my conversation with UVA men's tennis head coach Andres Pedroso.
But right now it's start time.
Joining us now on the Cracked Interviews podcast, as a two-time All-American and national title-winning coach, today's guest has a resume that sits far beyond reproach. He was the man tasked with saving the day when he took over for Coach Boland at UVA, a guy who makes coaching look oh so fabuloso. Ladies and gentlemen, it's UVA coach Andres Pedroso. Coach, welcome to the Cracked Interviews podcast.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
I mentioned to you this beforehand, but you know I'm a UVA fan. This is the dream come true for me.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, and so this is an interview, that I've been chasing for a long time. I apologize if I come off nervous from the get-go, but Coach, I mean, obviously, you being here, this is great. How's your holiday season? How's your Thanksgiving going?
Everything's going great. I've got 3 boys under the age of 5 in my house, so the value of my home goes down every day. But it's always exciting, and they're looking forward to Santa Claus, and so we're getting all geared up for that. That's a huge day, and we can't disappoint them. And guys are taking finals right now, so they're focused on academics. But we got through the fall with no injuries, and everyone worked hard. So the team's in good shape, and I'm actually headed to Florida on Thursday for a family vacation. My wife's family's in Delray, and my family's in Miami. So I'll be there for about 7 or 8 days to visit family.
Oh, that's awesome. And for you, now that it's year 3, would you say things have, stabilized? You've got a pretty, strong start to your season in terms of where you want to be as a team?
Yeah, definitely. When I took the job, if I had $1 for every time someone said you had big shoes to fill, I would be a massively rich man right now. But those comments have kind of gone away, and it's changed a lot. But yeah, it's been a great 2 years, and I've learned a ton. And Brian set me up for success in a lot of ways, so I'll always be thankful for that. But it's an honor to have this job, and I'm obsessed with the University of Virginia. I'm like a Thomas Jefferson nut, and I love the grounds and the rotunda and everything that goes with the University of Virginia. I'm a huge fan of, so it's an easy place for me to sell, and it's an honor to be here. And I love Charlottesville. It's a perfect place for my family. So it's a dream job for me.
Yeah, and Coach, you mentioned, obviously right there, your love of the school, and I know you were an ACC player back in the day. You played at Duke, and believe me, I've got questions a lot. I've got a 1996 Kalamazoo question for you that I promise you'll enjoy. That match versus Kevin Kim, still in the back of my mind. But for you, you mentioned it being a dream job, and I know you were an assistant coach there during 4 of the best years. But for you, getting, you left college tennis, you go into the private sector, and then you get this call. What was it about, the UVA job? What was it about college tennis that, kept calling back to you that made you want to return to the sport?
Well, UVA had finished top 3 in the country for I don't know how many years in a row before I had gotten there. And I felt like Brian was somebody that I could really learn from, somebody that had a lot of experience in college tennis, and he had built programs before. And when he was interviewing me, I think we were probably preseason number 1. So I said, geez, what a way to go into college tennis, being coach for a team that's, that you've got an unbelievable team. And I just said, what a great way to start, and what a great way to learn. And then I came and visited Charlottesville, and, two of my best friends went to UVA when I was growing up, was Brian Bailey and Huntley Montgomery. And they would always give me a hard time about how much better UVA was than Duke and how much nicer Charlottesville was than Durham. And I just, I said, whatever, guys, you guys just go to UVA and that's how you talk. But when I got to Charlottesville, I realized what a special place this place really is. And it's not just the school, but the city and everything that this place is all about. So when I got here, I said, gosh, this would be a great place to live too. And I was just about to get married. And my wife came to visit. She loved it, and then we went from there, and it was a great experience.
So Coach, I don't expect you to have listened to our interview with Coach Boland, but being that he mentored you, I'm hoping that he mentored you well enough to know that he spent a good deal of time just poking at Gruskin. So please, during the whole course of this interview, that's mission number one.
Yeah, you can ask Dustin Taylor and Brian's assistants. He's famous for his needle when it comes to his half. He's not afraid to needle.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So yeah, what as we start looking forward to this year's team, tell us about some of the new guys, new faces you've got on the team coming in.
Yeah, so our 2 freshmen that are joining us in the fall are Christian Alshon and RJ Friesen. And Christian, I've known for a long time because when I was coaching privately in Florida for those 3.5 years, I ran into Christian at every tournament. So I watched him compete at tournaments since he was 12 years old. And I think that the two biggest reasons why I brought him onto the team was number one, I mean, his competitiveness. And I've always thought of him as a winner and a gamer and somebody that just loves to compete. And I thought that college tennis would be a perfect arena for him to kind of showcase his skills. And when he came on his visit, I said, you know what? I don't want to see this guy across the net. And so I did everything I could to get him at Virginia. And luckily he chose us. And the other reason is I've known him for a long time and I've always gotten along really well with him. He comes from a great family and he's just a great person, great kid. And he's already added a lot of value to our culture and our team. And so he's going to be a great addition. I'm looking forward to watching him in a dual match this spring. And then the second one is RJ Friesen, who I didn't get to know until probably, around the fall of last year. And he is the most passionate kid you'll ever meet about tennis. And he's got a really incredible story where, he got diagnosed with a stress fracture in his back about 2.5 years ago, and he didn't play a tournament for 2 years. And before that, he was, one of the best kids in the country in the 12s and the 14s. And he sent me a couple videos when he called me for the first time, and I said, "Geez, these videos look unbelievable." And I don't really pay too much attention to videos in the recruiting process, to be honest with you. But these videos were pretty spectacular. and I said, "Gosh, this guy's good." And I looked it up, and I did some research on him, and obviously had great results. And then he came on his visit, and I just, I fell in love with the kid. I just thought that this guy's going to be incredible for our culture and somebody that's going to come to work every single day. And everybody that I spoke to about RJ Friesen, including other recruits and other coaches, they just said, "Gosh, this kid he's all about becoming the best tennis player he can be." And on top of that, he comes from a great family and he's a great kid and he values academics. And so these 2 guys are really going to add a lot of value to our culture. They already have. And I expect them to impact the program on the court as well. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys start to break through in college tennis.
For sure. And for you personally, I mean, you were at UVA before and, obviously with Coach Boland, you guys did one heck of a job recruiting from Alex Damajan, Mitchell Frank, Ryan Shane, my class of 2017, the Richard, J.C. Aragoni, Ty Kwiatkowski cohort. Obviously, recruiting at UVA is something that has always been easy. But for you, your first year, a little bit slower. You get the late addition of Gianni Ross. Last year, you get the late addition of Nakashima. But for you now, having 3 years to go at recruiting, what is your philosophy to approaching, is it, one player a year? Is it maybe 1 year you load up with 4 years? But how have you approached recruiting now that you're the head coach of the program?
Well, I mean, number one, I think at Virginia, the way I want to do it is I want to bring in kids that value academics and tennis, and kids that believe that you can do both at a high level and graduate ready to play pro tennis at the highest level if that's what you want to do. And so that's what I've tried to do. I've tried to recruit players and families that really want to dive into both, not just one. And I think that's what we've been able to do. And, you look at this next class that we have coming in next fall, 2 foreigners actually. So one kid from Spain, Iñaki Montes de la Torre, and a kid from Luxembourg, Chris Rodesh, and then our lone American of the class, Alex Kiefer. All three guys want to play pro tennis when they leave the University of Virginia, and they're all very invested in their academics, and that's why they chose Virginia. So that's the type of kid I'm looking for, and obviously guys that have played in big moments and guys that want to play in the biggest moments of college tennis and play in Final Fours and ACC championships, and those are guys. And you know what I look at when I watch them play tournaments is how do they handle important moments in matches? How do they handle being the favorite? How do they handle being the underdog? And I can tell based on what I see how comfortable they're going to be in those big moments. And at Virginia, that's the bar. The bar is to play in those big moments every single year. And those are probably the prerequisites that I look at, along with love of the game. They have to love tennis and just all around good people that are going to add value to the culture.
Yeah, Coach, I noticed I'm sure you're keeping up probably more than me, but I saw De La Torre got a nice first-round win in the Orange Bowl today.
Yeah, it's a tough match. He lost to that kid about 5 or 6 weeks ago in Barcelona. It was like his fourth tournament in a row. He plays in the semis, and he lost in a tight 3-setter. So to get through that one today was big for him, and especially after losing first round last week at the Eddie Herr to a tough Frenchman, another guy that he had lost 7-6 in the third to in Spain about a month ago. So it's nice to get a win under his belt and see if he can make a run at the Orange Bowl. But I'm really excited about him. He's a great competitor, and he's a really fun tennis player to watch. He's got a lot of variety, and he moves unbelievable. He's got a lot of Mitchell Frank in him, and he even uses a similar racket. And the first time I watched him play, I just said, "Gosh, this guy reminds me so much of Mitchell Frank." And anytime you say Mitchell Frank and it pertains to UVA, that's a good thing. So
yeah, now you're talking my language.
Yeah.
Are we talking drop shots? A lot of forehand, a lot of run around the forehands. We're looking at just those, just death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah, exactly. I think Mitchell let the game come to him a little more than Iñaki. I think Iñaki goes after guys a little more, but he's still great defensively and, kind of like an Andy Murray style player. And I loved watching Mitchell Frank. I was a huge Mitchell Frank fan, loved being on his court. And this guy's cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. I often describe myself as a poor man's Mitchell Frank, and that I like to get my time in, and my forehand is also ugly, but strangely effective. No, I mean, look, I could do 30 minutes on Mitchell Frank, and we'll save those questions for the end. But now you got me going. Just wait till we get to the Alex Damajan portion of this interview. But you mentioned leadership that these new recruits are bringing in and buying into the culture. And again, we will focus on your 2020 team, but for this being year 3 for you, I know you still have Carl, number 1 player, I think, preseason in the country, a guy who has a national title under his belt and knows what it means to be a UVA who. But this past offseason, you lose 2 guys who were a part of that as well, that culture, in Henrik and Ash. And I'm just curious for you, what is it like for you when a program loses 2 guys with that sort of experience? I know you still have Carl, but what is the burden that's left behind for the rest of the team, whether it be the coaching or the leaders, the players on the team who show leadership? How do you guys fill that gap?
Yeah, they were tremendous leaders for us. They were captains for 2 years for a reason. And even Henrik was a captain, even with the shoulder injury that sidelined him during last year. And they had a huge impact on the guys, not just on the court, but off the court. And, their senior banquet speech that I gave I put a lot of thought into it because they're 2 guys that have meant so much to the program. I mean, Henrik has been extremely clutch for the program, and he's been extremely invested, as well as his family, in the program. And he's built incredible relationships, not just with Brian's teams, but with my teams. And he's never going to be forgotten. And so he's been incredible in the sense that he was a great player and a great leader. I mean, Ash didn't play his first year, and he was on the sidelines and literally would go on the court, and Brian and Dustin would say, "Listen, we need you to play this way for Colin Altamirano against Ohio State," or at Ty, we need you to play this way against Ty because he's playing somebody from North Carolina. And so he would literally go out there and be a servant to the program and do whatever it took to get these guys ready. And then he went from there to being on the court and having a breakout year his junior year and being an incredible leader for us. I mean, he clinched, I think, 3-4-3 matches his senior year. And that's for a reason. It's because the guy worked super hard and he had incredible character and he earned everything that he got. So, I mean, yeah, those are two huge leaders that we lost, but I'd like to think that the guys learned a lot from those two guys. And, they talked a lot about what UVA was before I got here. And there's a lot that was right about the program that I wasn't going to try and fix because it wasn't broken. And they passed on those lessons to the players on the team. And Carl's been able to do that as well as Amar. And it's just a level of professionalism, and it's a level of being there for each other. Relationships is everything in this program. Spending time with each other, communicating with each other, staying in touch, being there for each other when they're down. And I'd like to think that, the proof is in the pudding. I'm watching these guys every day, and I know that they learned a lot from those two guys. And Carl and Amar are continuing that. And I think the culture is only going to keep improving. So I always tell the guys that's one of our biggest weapons is the culture, is the fact that we're so close. And, Brian and I, we talked about it in 2011, 2012. We lost those two NCAA finals because, frankly, I think USC was closer as a group. And we learned the hard way there, and we put a lot of time into our culture ever since then. I think the culture's been really strong, and there's no cliques, and guys accept each other, they empathize with each other, and they work hard together. So a strong culture and a united group is a huge weapon in college tennis.
Yeah, I think a testament to that culture is the fact your first season, you mentioned the Henrik injury, but coming off of 3 straight national titles, you guys go 14-13, and obviously that is not the standard UVA had seen the past 15 years before that. And yes, when you add a player like Brandon Nakashima and get Henrik back the next year, on paper, what that does to a team's roster is obvious. But it's a testament to the fact that you guys go 24-5 last season, make the ACC tournament finals, end up getting to the NCAA quarterfinals. What do you think, outside of the talent, because obviously when you add Brandon and Henrik, there's that, but what allowed you guys to flip the switch back on so quickly to, easily erase that 2017-18 season and have the success you did last year?
I mean, I think that 2017-18 season helped us in a lot of ways because, before you can really win the right way, you have to learn how to lose together and lose the right way. And I thought we did that in the 2018 season. I mean, these guys, I really feel like we maximized that year. We did the best we could, and guys fought like crazy. And, we were probably a couple points away from getting even closer to beating Columbia than we were in that second round match. I really thought we were close there, and that would have been a huge result. But I really felt like guys felt that we left it all on the table, and that's what it's all about. It's about doing your best and preparing the best you can and having peace of mind at the end of it all. And I feel like that carried on to the next year, just trying to be the best version of yourself every day, just trying to work as hard as you can, trying to prepare as best you can, do as well in school as you can, try and treat people with respect and consideration as best you can. And you do all those things and you like each other, it's going to be really impossible not to maximize. So I think with the added talent, I think obviously that helped a lot. But, we squeaked out a lot of matches last year that I don't think we would have squeaked out if we hadn't checked every box when it comes to, academics, tennis, who we are as people, how close we are. And I really believe in that. I really believe that if you take care of, if your life is in order and you can take care of everything in your life in the right way with maximum effort and the right intentions, I think you're going to maximize on whatever you do. And that's what will happen this year, because I think this group is going to do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, certainly at the end of last season, the UNC match in the ACC tournament and South Carolina and Stanford at the NCAAs, the year before those matches go the other way, right? And it's not like I wasn't following along the way. I felt a lot of those 4-3 matches in 2018. That was the first time Chris and I had met, and he's like, "Oh, your Who's not looking so great, Alex." And I'm like, "Shut up. We just won 3 titles. Just don't give me that right now." But yeah, it speaks to the collective strength of the team that you're able to come through those moments. And I guess as you look to this year, after the changes your roster undergoes, how do you prepare your team? How do you adapt to the changes to get ready to put your team through that same situation in 2020?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think these guys know why they chose Virginia, not just because of the academics, but also just the history of the program and what's expected of you. And honestly, I mean, it sounds a little arrogant, but I considered it an honor to put the V Saber on, and I know the guys consider it an honor to put the V Saber on, and they know that when they go out there, they're not just representing themselves, but they're representing a program of players that have competed like crazy and have just done it the right way. And so there's a sense of responsibility to go out there and believe in yourself and believe in your game and do the best you can. And that's what I think this next group's going to do. And, we have the Somdevs, the Tret Hueys of the world, the Ties and the JCs and Lucas and, that whole crew, the Richards that come back to Charlottesville often. And they talk about it with the guys, and they make clear what the expectation is. And it's not, the expectation is not to win, but it's to go out there and compete like a Wahoo, like a Virginia Cavalier, and these guys hear it all the time, and they spend a lot of time with our former players, and we're so lucky to have them back so often, and that's just the expectation. And these guys chose Virginia for a reason. They're not afraid of the limelight, they're not afraid of the big moment, and it just comes with the territory, and it's great preparation for life, especially if these guys want to go on to work for incredible companies and organizations. They're going to have to deal with expectations and big moments, and it's more fun. Those moments that's why we play college tennis. And when I recruit kids, I say, the best kids in the world, I just say, this is what you want to do. You want to play in the biggest moments of college tennis against the best programs, and anything less you're settling for. So I think they understand that, and I think it's relayed to them in a healthy way, that it's not overwhelming with pressure, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
So let's if we move down beyond, obviously, Brandon and Carl, the rest of the lineup for the year, Coach, you've got, obviously, you're bringing, Gianni and Ryan back, who saw, obviously significant playing time last year. But then, as we kind of did in our preview earlier, it's kind of, as we look at it, and we're the outsiders, it kind of looks like a free-for-all after that, with guys like William Woodall and Amar and Matthew Lord and Christian Alshon. I mean, have you gotten a good sense yourself yet, now that these guys are basically gone and coming back in January, getting ready to play, of kind of what you're going to try when you start the season?
Absolutely not. Honestly, it's wide open, and yeah, it's wide open, and we've got a lot of parity at those spots in the lineup, and we're going to go with the guys that we believe are going to leave it all out on the court, the guys that come the best prepared from winter break. And then we'll start out with some guys, but then, no one's spot is safe, and everyone's going to be competing for these spots. And it's going to be a great experience for these guys, because they're going to make each other better, and they're going to push each other every day. But honestly, I have no idea what our lineup's going to be in January at this point.
How about on the doubles front? I mean, you've had the fall to kind of try some different doubles pairings in your own head. Have you gotten yourself at least to where you feel like you've got at least a couple pairings that you like, and where you think you're going to start the year, or are you in the same boat there, where you're coming back in January and figuring it out?
I'm pretty much in the same boat. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, when I was an assistant here, it was always kind of like that when we'd come back from winter break, and it was like, okay, so who are we going to put in doubles? And it wasn't really like a set team, except maybe, Drew Courtney and Michael Ceballos were obviously a set team, and you had other set teams there, but this year it's pretty wide open. I mean, obviously William Woodall and Oceani Ross won some huge matches for us in the postseason last year, so that's a team that's got a lot of chemistry and a lot of experience. Matt Lord and Carl Soderlund have played 2 straight years together off and on, so they got a lot of experience as well. But last year we really didn't get to play Ryan Getz due to his back injury. So Ryan's got to play doubles. So Ryan's too good of a player not to put him in the doubles lineup. And then Christian's been an incredible doubles player in the juniors as well. And Amar and Ryan played well this fall. And RJ, returns with the best of them. So we've got a lot of options. And honestly, yeah, sorry I can't give you more color there, but it's kind of up in the air, and it just depends on how guys come back from winter break, and then we'll see, and we'll probably be changing it up, throughout the year. We'll see.
No, that's fine. I'm reserving the right to text you again come January. Be like, all right, now what are we thinking, Coach? But no, and we talked about this in our preview as well, is because you will have the chance to play with the different spots of your roster going into the ACC season, and especially these past 10 years, to be top 3 in the ACC yourselves, UNC, Wake Forest. It usually meant you were a top 10, maybe even a top 8, top 5 team. For you guys, knowing that this year in the ACC, Wake has lost a bunch of guys. UNC obviously brings back a ton of talent. There's just a ton of talented teams, 1 through 7, 8, 9 this year in the ACC. How important is it for your team to have, things figured out by that ACC season, or will you still be able to use those dual matches against your fellow conference foes to sort of play around with things?
Yeah, if there's one thing that I've learned in this job is you've got to gather facts and kind of wait till you have all the information to make decisions, especially when it comes to lineups. I think by the ACC schedule, you should have a pretty good idea, but, changing the doubles lineup is always fair game. I mean, we changed the doubles lineup last year in the middle of the NCAA tournament. I'm totally open to changing up at all times and keeping people guessing and also trying different teams as far as chemistry goes. But the ACC this year is going to be awesome. I mean, just as far as the competitiveness of matches, I mean, again, there's a lot of parity. Every match is going to be a war. And that's a reason why you go to an ACC school, because the conference is so tough and high quality. And it's going to be really exciting because, every single match is going to be tough. So yeah, I think that's just a positive.
I wouldn't expect you to say anything less, Coach, but I tell you, I live in Louisville, and your opening match, January 18th, is at Louisville, and that's not going to be a war, okay? So I will be there to watch, but I expect nothing. It might be a war from the bloodbath that occurs. But
I don't know if I agree with you there. It's a tough place to play, and they beat us my first year, and so to tell you the truth, I'm going in there with all the respect in the world, and so are the guys. So we are not taking that team lightly by any means. You guys can go ahead and do that, but we will not.
No, but speaking of which, so obviously you're familiar with the facility. What are your thoughts on the personally? From a player's perspective, it may be okay. From a fan's perspective, there's 2 things that I really can't stand about that. And one is just the general, anywhere that does a split 3-and-3.
Yeah.
What's your take on the split versus 6 courts in a row?
Well, if you can't see in between, then yes, it's not ideal because you can't see what's going on, and it's a different energy, and there's unknowns, but the players should be focused on their court, and the coaches should be focused on their court ideally. But sometimes you can't help but wondering what's going on the other courts. But yeah, it's just, again, it's a tough place to play, and it just adds another variable to the equation that makes it a tough place to play. And we will 100% be ready. But I think if you have a facility where you split the 6 courts down the middle in threes, but you can see it across, I don't think it's as big of a deal. I actually think it gives you a little bit more of an arena type feel if the courts are divided in 2. So yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem as long as there's you can see in between the six.
For our listeners that don't know, the Louisville indoor facility is split to 3 and 3, and there's literally a lobby in between.
Exactly.
You can't see through. So in a case like that, I mean, obviously, like you said, the players really, it shouldn't matter to them. They're focused on their match. You guys are the ones more worried about what's going on. So do you send Brian back and forth between the two sides, or how do you split up between the three of you? How do you split the coaching duties when you've got two sides like that?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the relationships, where the relationships are, as far as, who feels comfortable with who, and which coach has momentum with which player, and which player, feels the most comfortable with their coach. And, it obviously doesn't always fit perfectly, but I feel like all three coaches have great relationships with all the guys, so they can coach anybody. But I definitely don't have Brian running across 6 courts giving me updates because as competitive as Brian is, I don't think I could get him off the court. His coaching, but yeah, I mean, it's funny. The dual matches are so fun. I'm looking forward to this season, and it's so much more fun than the fall. And people don't really understand what it is until they experience a match, especially a competitive one. And it's why college tennis is so special, and why I think we'll see a lot more team competitions on the pro tour, and that's just going to help tennis.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the record, listeners, that was Chris taking the shots at Louisville. I don't know what sort of mood he's in, but that just seems he's feeling a little spunky right now. But on the idea of rule changes, and we'll talk about some fun ones during our rapid fire, but last season you got the chance to experience the new round of 16 format, and you had the chance as a program to host Stanford in that round of 16 match. Obviously, you guys came through and ended up winning that, and got to, because you were a top 8 seed, got to play the role of host. But I'm curious, you played the other format. You've also played ad versus no ad scoring. What do you think about the changed round of 16 format, and in general the changes that have come to college tennis since you stepped away, the no ad scoring, the abbreviated doubles points, things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I think the doubles point is, anything can happen because it's a set and no ad scoring. So, you've got to come out guns blazing, or else you fall asleep for a minute and you lose the doubles point. So again, I think it adds excitement to it. I think it's an appropriate length. I don't think it's too short or too long. I think it just makes doubles that much more electric, which is fun. The no ad scoring, at first I wasn't in favor of it, because I thought, it's not like the pro tour, it's going to hurt our players physically and all these things. But honestly, these matches are so intense, and it means so much to these guys that it taxes you in a different way that the pro tour or junior tennis doesn't tax you. And so I think they're still very physical matches, and I think recovering from these matches is not easy. And so I think the whole physicality argument isn't really an argument once you've played in one of these dual matches and once you've experienced it firsthand. I think so. I like the no ad scoring. I think it's created more parity in college tennis. I think there's a lot. There's teams down the rankings that are competing a lot closer with teams high in the rankings. I think the round of 16, hosting the round of 16 match is a huge advantage for the top 16 teams. I really think it is. I thought we had a great crowd for Stanford, and it was an electric crowd, and it was an unbelievable match, and it definitely helped us. So I think it's a huge edge for the top 16 teams. But, with what it takes to be a top 16 team, I think it's merited. I think you earned it, and I think if they're going to do it that way, I think it's fine. A lot of teams might complain about it, but if we're ever not a top 16 team, I won't complain about it, because I think it's fair, and I think it's fine. Just go out there and compete. It's fun to play at places like Virginia and Ohio State and Baylor and Florida and all these great places that have these great fans, and it's fun. That's what it's all about. That's what you want to play. So fair game, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just adding a home match for fans. A home match beats a round of 16 sparsely attended, except for by the Fruit Flies match in Orlando. It's like, Yeah, so I would completely agree with you there. I have a segment of fun questions I want to get to that are non-2020 UVA season. But to wrap up on your team this season, again, you lose Henrik, Ash, and maybe or maybe not Brandon. We'll put a little asterisk next to that one. But for your roster, you look at the fall results, and I would say it was, a pretty successful fall. You have guys like Gianni Ross going 9-2, Ryan Getz 11-4, Amara Alakbani 11-2 as well. What have you seen from your team this fall, again, that has you ready for the 2020 season? And as UVA fans, and this is a personal question in this instance, what should we be expecting from the Who's this season?
I think you're going to see a team that only gets better, because I told this to the team at our last team dinner. I said, guys, you guys are a group of guys that I can go to with suggestions, feedback, or constructive criticism. And, a lot of kids might blow it off or not listen or maybe take it personally, but this team actually takes it to heart, and they actually try to improve themselves on and off the court, and they really take feedback well, and they're very coachable, and they're all about just continuing to get better. So I think you're going to see a team that only gets better. We have a little bit, we'll have some spots where we won't have as much experience as in the past, but I think that's a great opportunity for these younger guys, and you're going to see guys step up, and you're obviously going to see guys fail, but that's part of learning and part of growing, and these guys handle that adversity really well. They really want to get better, and they really want to improve and just grow as people. And so I think that's what you'll see. You'll see a team that competes like crazy, and you'll see a team that competes fairly, and you're going to see a team that's only going to get better. And I think come April, when the ACCs come around, you're going to see a team that can play with anyone. So I'm excited. Yeah, it should be a good process of evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for our college tennis fans out there, is there any place like a match at the Boar's Head in Charlottesville? Isn't that a must-attend location?
Absolutely not. Playing at the Boar's Head against a great team, there's nothing that gets our fans out more than that. And it's just a special place to play. And I think everyone should, if they're a college tennis fan, everyone should come to UVA at some point and experience it, because it really is. It's a blessing for us, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm still itching. I got to get down there for National Indoors. I got to get down there for Charlottesville Challenger. Those are two things on my tennis bucket list that I have yet to do, and I will be, attempting to do moving forward. But with that in mind, there's one last thing I want to do with you. It's something we do with all of our guests: run them through a rapid fire series of questions. More so in that the topics are going to vary quite a bit from question to question. Then you have to give quick answers. But sound good with you, Coach Pedroso?
Yeah.
All right. Well, then on that note, Westhoff, give me a rapid fire sound effect. All right. Let's start here. Again, two-time All-American. You never lost an ACC match while as a player at Duke. You never lost an ACC match while as an assistant coach at Virginia. How does something like that happen?
You get lucky. You get to play on good teams. I mean, I got to play on great temes. So that, honestly, I can't take credit for that, because a lot of those matches I lost and the team won. So I've been a part of great teams. So
no, certainly. And again, I mentioned that 1996 boys 18s Kalamazoo third round, Andres Pedroso taking on number 4 seed and eventual champion Kevin Kim, a match you lost, I believe 6-0, 6-4, not to rub that in your face, but I mentioned two-time All-American, you've played Kalamazoo. How much does it help you and, as you're coaching players through the matches, as you're trying to relate to them, to say, look, I've had these experiences? How much do you rely on your own personal experiences as a player to, connect with these guys?
All the time. I mean, I've always believed that one of the best ways to coach is to tell your story and show your players that you can relate to them. And there's something that I really take pride in, and it's to never forget and to keep reminding myself by going out there and competing how hard this sport really is. And that's why I give these guys a lot of credit to step in the moments that they do, and to train as hard as they do, and to study as hard as they do, and to still go out there and do it with 100% effort. And it's not easy. It's not easy, especially at a school like Virginia where you're studying just as hard as you're playing tennis. And I think it's great. I think it helps prepare kids for life. But again, it's really hard. And I try never to lose sight of that. And I try to remind my players all the time that I'm super proud of them when they go out there and they give their best effort, because it's a hard sport. And might be the hardest sport in the world to make a living at. Let alone become an All-American and do the type of things that these guys are doing. So,
yeah, and look, you're a former top 300 pro in both singles and doubles. You're in pretty good shape, if you'll let me say. I won't ask you to play, how you compete against your current team, but I know you brought back a former incredibly successful college tennis player to be your assistant coach in Scott Brown, one of my favorite characters of 21st century college tennis. You and Scott go on the court right now, 2 out of 3 sets. A, do either of you finish the match? And B, what's that score look like?
It probably only lasts a set, and Scott probably wins 7-6 in a 2-hour set. So Scott can play. Scott can still play. Scott might be he is one of our best doubles players. So I'm not afraid to throw Scott in the fire with the Who's at practice. But yeah, he's a character. I can't tell you how much enjoyment and how much laughter he brings to the team. I mean, he just puts everybody in a good mood and just makes sure that the energy's right, and it's a good balance between him and I. There's nobody better on the sidelines of keeping guys loose and just keeping it chill, and we're lucky to have Scott.
Does the team of Pedroso Brown play 3 doubles for UVA? 2 doubles?
I mean, I'm not going to say, but we can battle with anyone. We've battled with some teams, and I don't know, the guys might say differently, but we can battle with anyone. I like our chances.
Which brings me to the follow-up of, let's say, as opposed to coin flips to determine serve, we said at the start of the match, the coaches are going to play 1 doubles point or 2 out of 3 doubles points, and whoever wins gets to decide who serves when on which court. Is that something you would be in favor of?
Absolutely. 100%. We'd be all in.
Yeah, I hear Coach saying, "Bring Bresky on right now."
You would see a full dynamic warm up from the UVA coaching staff before these matches are out.
No, I can't wait for you to call Coach Brown like, "Hey, I'm serve the Boland's backhand. I'm poaching, and we're getting him back." This is for 2011.
Is if I asked Tony and Chris Eden to do that before a match, they'd probably say yes. So I'll actually bring that up the next time I see them. They'd go for it. I don't know if the referees would, but they'd want to do it.
No, I'm just saying the coin toss is so boring. It's like we can do better. And so why not have a little entertainment as a part of it? Yeah, exactly. I've got some other ones too. I'll run. We can run through these ideas now real quick. We've been asking all of the coaches as opposed to 1 through 6 singles, and we've heard the cons from other coaches, but I'm curious your thoughts. Lawless lineups. Neither team knows what it's going to look like beforehand. Coaches, it's at your discretion. Play whoever, wherever.
Wow. I haven't really thought about that one. I mean, I think it would hurt college tennis, to be honest, because then the best players are not going to be guaranteed the best competition. So that's something that, might be something that you'd have to deal in recruiting when you're recruiting these top kids that have 1 foot in pro tennis and 1 foot in college tennis. And they want to play the best players in college tennis. And if they have the chance to play another team's number 6, then they might see that as a waste of time. So I don't know if that would help our cause in continuing to increase the level of competition in college tennis.
That's fair, but which is why I would say that would be my original negotiating point, so that we do just the home field advantage to make a home court that much more important. It's that the home team gets to decide lineup. So let's say you say to a Nandin Brakashima, you're like, "Hey Nandin, I promise I'm going to play you at 1 no matter what." And then he's like, "All right, cool, coach." But the home team, it incentivizes a home court advantage. I'm just looking for little nicks and changes.
And then the home team can match up.
Yeah, that's good. The home team gets to choose. I'm saying, so like, let's say you go to Louisville.
I have the advantage with the crowd.
Yeah, but now you're going to Louisville, and it's really, if you can get 100, big crowd there, now there really could be an upset.
Jeez.
Gruskin's never been to Louisville. There's 2 bleachers inside that fit 30 people.
That's aggressive. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I favor that one, but I like your creativity.
I appreciate it. What about the idea of, you talked about it being a long fall, move all individuals to the fall versus all team stuff in the spring?
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to see the NCAA individual event at the end of the fall.
Just buy yourself some time.
Yeah, and I just think that it's more fair. I mean, it's the highlight of the individual season, and having it when guys are fresh rather than having a guy who just won the national championship with his team show up the next day and having to battle through that. I mean, many guys have done it. The guy from Texas this year did it, and Stevie Johnson did it, and I know Samba didn't get that far in the team event, but he did it as well, and
Jameer came pretty close. Yeah.
Jameer, yeah, it's been done. But I think you could make it even a bigger deal if you had it at the end of the fall. I mean, then you could really promote it and make it a huge event, and you could host it at the U.S. Open or whatever it is. And I just like to see it, individual in the fall and team in the spring.
Yeah, for sure. I'm all in on that. Well, then, last 2 for you, I swear, and then we'll let you go. So in case, our listeners are aware, we are doing a current Best of the Decade series on one of our other podcasts, the Great Shot Podcast, just looking at the 2010s of tennis. And you played, obviously, a pivotal role in the 2010s college tennis. You were near or coaching some of the best teams of the decade. You can pick your selection of the UVA teams, any of the 15 through 17 or that 2013 team. I could even argue that 2011 team, as well as the USC teams, the one that comes to mind that, Roberto Quiroz, Gomez, Yannick Hanifman are the bottom 3 singles players. My question to you, we're going to be doing our college tennis Best of the Decade episode pretty soon, but your thoughts on the best men's team of the 2010s?
Jeez, you're putting me on the spot here.
I'll tell you this, Coach Boland copped out, so don't cop out. I need an answer from you.
I mean, gosh, that's a dogfight. All right. You know what? I mean, I'm gonna have to go with our 2013 team.
Undefeated.
Yeah, the undefeated UVA team of 2013 that experienced the miracle of the guy stepping on the net.
Pouget against Frank, I'll never forget.
Yeah, that was incredible. But I'm gonna have to go with that team. As much as I wouldn't like to play the 2015, 16, or 17 team at UVA because they were all extremely strong and incredible depth with JC at 5 and Henrik at 6. I mean, that's just crazy. But I believe in my man Julian Uruguayan and Justin Shane, and I'm gonna go with my 2013 team.
Yeah. So that's fair. The counter I always like to give, and I know this team didn't win a national title, so some people will discount it, but you were right there for this. There was a team at UVA where Jaromir Jenkins played 4 singles. The 2011 team. Shabazz, the best freshman I've ever seen in college tennis, and Alex Damajan, Sonam, and then Jameer, a healthy Drew Courtney. I mean, I know that team lost in the finals, but they were undefeated in the run-up to it. That's as good of a team as I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, you're right. And unfortunately, Drew had a broken foot at that NCAA championships, and that's why, that 2011 final, he played all the doubles points with a broken foot. He's had a stress fracture in his foot, and he was just adamant. He was like, I'm playing. And he just toughed it out. And that was one of the most incredible performances I've seen from a student athlete in my life. And unfortunately, he couldn't play singles, but yeah, that team was unbelievable. I mean, Sanam at 3, that's crazy. Jameer at 4, and Shazi and Damo were unbelievable at 1 and 2. So yeah, no, you're right. Again, that's a tough question right there, but I gotta Yeah, I gotta go with my 2013 team. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Richie, JC. I'm gonna go like a list of players that I need to apologize for.
No, look, I think they'll just appreciate that you didn't say a USC team or you didn't say last year's team. They'll be like, oh, I appreciate the honesty. I mean, look, the fun part about being a UVA fan is you got a bunch of teams to choose from, right? There were a bunch of good ones throughout the decade, which leads me to my last question. You leave UVA in 2014. Now, you were there for a bunch of national indoor championships. You were there for the program's first, Coach Boland's first team national NCAA championship. But you leave Ship right before they go on their run of 3 straight titles. Did you ever text Coach Taylor and like, these are my boys, like, you're welcome?
No, because I know how much value he added to the team. One thing about Dustin is that, first of all, the guys loved him, but second of all, I mean, he really gave these guys clarity as to how they need to play the game of tennis. And I really feel, plus I think he added more structure to the program, and I really feel like he allowed these guys to prepare in a better way, and when they were on the court, they had clarity as to how they needed to play, and he also helped get their lives in order. So if he didn't have all of that impact on the program, maybe I would have talked a little trash, but the guy was incredible, and you know, it's not a coincidence that they won 3 titles in a row with Dustin there, and obviously Brian did a great job, and Carlos, and so yeah, they killed it.
Yeah, no, without question. All right, I'm throwing in a bonus one. I'm sorry. More raw power. Alex Damajan, Ryan Shane, or Jarmir Jenkins. Just untapped. I'm going to hit this ball as hard as humanly possible.
I mean, Damo was pretty intimidating. I mean, Damo beat the living crap out of me every time we played on practice set. And, like, I thought I could kind of, like, chip my way around him and, like, mix it up and, you know, really get the ball out of the sin zone. But as soon as you gave him a ball that he had some time on, I mean, it was over. And, yeah, Damo was probably the most intimidating. And, I mean, Ryan was huge, too. I mean, he destroyed the ball, still does. And, I mean, Jameer, I don't consider Jameer, like, a big ball striker. The guy was just probably the best athlete, one of the best athletes I've ever coached, along with Carl Soderlund. But yeah, Jameer was just a freak athlete and so clutch. The only guy that I've ever been able to coach that in the middle of a dual match, I could say to him, all right, Jameer, we need your point. And the guy would flip a switch and just turn it on and win. I mean, it was really, really fun to watch.
I mean, the matches that come to mind. See, again, we could go for 3 hours, but that 2011 run, that I think it was quarterfinals against Stanford, semifinals against Ohio State, and then even though you lost the final against USC, I mean, he got the point. I think all 3 of those were 3-set wins. So, like, yeah, the guy was a beast.
He was super clutch. I mean, he was, and a lot of times I just sat back, didn't say a word, and I just enjoyed the show because he did some really special things. So he was fun to coach. But I'd have to say, I wouldn't want to face Alex Damajan.
Oh, me neither. Again, there's a 30 for 30 out there on Alex Damajan, just waiting. Yeah, it'll be, you know, League of Legends, how one man's video game turned into just a tennis powerhouse. I don't know. It's a working title. But obviously we could do this for hours. But Coach, you know, I know it's late. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Obviously, good luck to, I'm going to say it, our UVA Who's this offseason. Enjoy your holiday season. And, you know, anytime you want to come back on the Cracked Interviews podcast, we would love to have you.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for being so passionate about college tennis. We really appreciate how excited you guys are and how big of a deal you make our sport, because it really is unique, and so it's a pleasure. So anytime you want me on, just let me know, and we appreciate everything you guys do.
Well, I appreciate it. Pandora's box is now open, Coach. But before I let you go, can I get a go Who's out of you?
Go Who's.
Of course. Take care, Coach.
All right, bye.
But right now it's start time.
Thank you for listening to our conversation with University of Virginia men's tennis head coach Andreas Pedroso. For you listeners who have missed any of our interviews or any of our College Contender Series content thus far, Coach Pedroso, the sixth team, him and UVA, the sixth team we've done. We've also interviewed TCU, talked about TCU and talked to Coach David Roditi, Mississippi State, talked to Coach Matt Roberts, UNC Coach Paul, USC Coach Macy, the number 16 Baylor, Coach Boland, obviously now, and we've really appreciated all the times, so thank you to all of those coaches as well as Coach Pedroso for taking the time to talk to us about these 2020 teams and help get us listeners and fans prepared for the 2020 season. I mean, Chris, you look back at the Coach Pedroso's sentiment. I know me, you, and Matt were a little bit down, but he seems to think this UVA team's got the talent to be right up there with anyone.
Yeah, I think he's obviously everybody likes the guys they recruit and they like their team. I think you could get a little sense in there that he knows he's got, that he's got good guys for sure, but he's got some, if indeed he loses Brandon, he's got some building to do there, but I don't think he has any doubts in what he's got and that he's going to be able to turn it.
Yeah, certainly. And that was the thing. You can tell Coach Pedroso believes so much in the UVA program, believes in what it means as a standard bearer for college tennis and, propelling, building off of the success they had throughout the 2010s to keep the program growing and achieving even more as it moves into the 2020s. So as a UVA fan personally, it's so great to see a coach like Andreas, his excitement, his commitment, his passion, and his level of character take over a program I care about so much on a personal level. So I mentioned it at the top of the interview with him. I was looking forward to this interview for too long, and I swear we didn't organize it because I was nervous. And so, Chris, I thank you. I'm sure I talked plenty over to you when we listened back, but appreciate you going through it as well. And yeah, again, listeners, if you've missed any of these College Contender Series, we will be doing all of the top 10 men's teams all the way through to the start of the dual match season. I mean, Chris, again, we talked about it in the intro, but these coaches more and more impressive as we go on.
Oh, it's just a blast talking to them, and it's clear they actually like coming on. They like to get to talk, and they like the fact that we're giving that publicity to the sport as a whole. So it's it's just fun to do it.
And I swear to God, Chris, I swear to God, we are like 3 coaches away from getting them to change the coin toss to one of our fun suggestions. Now, it may not be the coaches playing, but all of them have said, you know what? Yeah, we can do better than the coin toss.
I was thinking as during the interview with Pedroso when he said, yeah, if I'm pretty sure that, that Tony and Eaton would go for that. And I'm thinking, hell, the ITA doesn't even have to agree at that point. They can do the flip. It could turn out however they want. And as long as the coaches did their thing, the teams could elect, oh, no, we defer because our guy lost the lost the point anyway. So,
Yeah.
It would be great. I mean, they should totally do that.
This is what I'm saying for anyone out there who wants to critique college tennis, and there are plenty of reasons to critique it, to critique the sport of tennis as being resistant to change. But having talked to these coaches over the past few weeks, Chris, they seem so enthusiastic, not only about coming onto the podcast, the idea of growing college tennis, but just exploring any avenue that they think, whether it would be a potential benefit or not. They don't shoot down ideas. And so anyone out there, tennis Twitter, you always get a few tweets of people who mock the sport, who emphasize what's wrong with it as opposed to focusing on what's right with it. I hope what you've taken away from these interviews, and Chris, I'm curious your thoughts, is that these coaches are both open to not only discussion on reform, but to actually conducting the change that would make the game and help it grow into the 21st century.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we bring up our share of, of the silly things, but
you can be even more blunt of dumb shit.
Yeah, but even the pervasive thing behind it is that when you're bringing up a serious thought and like with Coach Pedroso, hey, let's play all the individuals in the fall, that would be a big change, but he's all for it, and even if they're not for it, everybody is thinking about it and giving good reasons why they are or aren't for things like that, and they're definitely open to change.
Absolutely. That's the one thing I would focus on is that college tennis, or at least the minds leading it, are not stagnant. They're very much aware that the sport is a fluid thing and that it needs to adjust to the times, as all things must do. But another thing that you got to do to adjust to the times is you got to, what have we learned more about? Back in the day when, speaking of adjusting times, I think back to the 1970s and, what did it take to be a good tennis player? And obviously it didn't take much because Chris Halioris was playing college tennis. But this idea, wow, nothing. You didn't jump on me there. All right, we'll take it. He accepts the
70s. In the 70s, I was playing. Come on, Gruskin.
Well, you accepted my premise, but the point being, one thing that I'm sure Chris would have liked to have more of? Better nutrition, better self-prepared. He wasn't aware of the fitness level that it took. He wasn't aware of all of the little off-court things you can do to make yourself a better tennis player. One of the fortunate things about living in 2019, being a part of Cracked Racquets, is that we as a tennis community are now far more aware of what it takes to prepare yourself, put yourself in the best situation to succeed on the court. And one way we are trying to help players do that at Cracked Racquets is through our promotion of the brand new tennis-specific energy bar known as ArrowBar. ArrowBar, our newest sponsor. Again, more potassium in an ArrowBar than a banana. High melting point chocolate, meaning if you open it on, you're playing in that winter Nats in Arizona, when even though it's winter, it's 100 degrees. And you're like, it's actually not 100 degrees at winter Nats. That shows I never really played it, but you get the point. It's a hot, sunny day. You're hungry. It's the third set. You're dying. You need some energy. You're like, oh, I have a bar in my backpack, but then it turns out that bar is melty and you've got chocolate all over your face and you just look like a schmuck. Well, with ArrowBar, you're not going to look like a schmuck. You're going to look like a champion. It's beautiful packaging. It's delicious taste. It's organic ingredients. It will help prepare you to be a better tennis player. And Chris, we heard from Coach Bolin. We've heard from all of these coaches. I feel like I was 2 or 3 ArrowBars away from a college scholarship.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but what I am pretty certain that one of those ArrowBars would be enough to get this quinquagenarian past you in a set.
Well, I'll tell you what, instead of those beer massages, maybe if you would have given Trevor an ArrowBar, he wouldn't have been cramping so much.
Oh, great point. If we'd only had him back then.
Yeah, exactly. But so again, for our listeners, you don't want to be putting junk in your system. You want to be prepared. ArrowBar is the way to go, and as our way to promote it for you listeners, they have been kind enough to give us a promotion. Use the code CRACKED30 when you go to their website, arrowbar.com, to look up to buy their product. If you use the promo code CRACKED30, that's CRACKED 30, the number, not the letters. They will give you 30% off of your first purchase, and again, they will appreciate that we sent you there. So for us, please go and do that. They've also been kind enough, as a way of saying thank you for this new partnership, to give us a free signed John Isner racket. Now, Chris, I'm pretty sure you could have Isner's serve and I would still beat you at this point, but certainly a signed John Isner racket is a giveaway at the least. If you're scrambling for a gift to give Trevor, isn't that at least sign yourself up for a raffle, potentially win that racket, and you have yourself a Christmas gift?
I'm still stumbling on I have an Isner serve and I can't beat you. I don't know, but yeah, definitely the racket would be great.
You strike me as a guy who's got a one-handed backhand now, not out of choice but out of necessity.
Just purely a slice because I have nothing else.
And right there, I make my point. Even Isner's serve, I think I still got you. But I tell you this, give him a month of the ArrowBar diet, and I would be nervous because Chris is a cyclist. And if he actually started getting the proper tennis nutrition in his body, who knows what he would be capable of, and who knows what you, the listener, would be capable of once you get your first shipment of ArrowBars. Again, the promo code CRACKED30. Go give yourself a chance to win our free signed John Isner racket by leaving a review on this podcast, the Great Shot Podcast, or the Mini Break Podcast. Leave your social media handle in the event. We will enter you in the raffle. The more reviews you leave, the more times your name will be entered into the raffle. And give yourself a chance, again, an easy holiday gift from our Cracked Racquets family to yours. But with that in mind, Chris, any final thoughts on this Cracked interview?
No, I'm just looking forward to keep going. We got four more to go, and they just keep getting better every time. So we're looking forward. Hopefully next week we've got we'll get Coach Shelton on if we can do that and keep it going.
Absolutely, and so be on the lookout for that, listeners. Of course, none of these podcasts would happen without our super producers, Max Fligner and Daniel Westoff, who have an editing job to do, as always, to keep you guys up to date with all of the latest news. And again, you need more from that. Go to our website, crackedrackets.com for the more immediate updates. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's at Cracked Rackets. But with that in mind, for our super producers, Max Fligner, Daniel Westoff, who again could not do this without, for my lovely co-host, Chris Halioris, who day in, day out, again, we are so excited to have join our Cracked Rackets team, for the incredible guest, UVA head coach Andres Pedroso, whose team and program we wish luck throughout the 2020s, and from everyone at our Cracked Rackets and Tennis Channel Podcast Network team, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. Chris, I don't know if we tell our listeners anything, but we'll go with, hey, cracked interviews. See, even I lost the thread. You lose thread across all of these, but Westoff, leave all of that in. Chris, thank you again. Listeners, we hope you enjoyed this interview, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, everyone.